One of you submitted a really exciting question for me to receive, and it's particularly exciting because it goes straight to the heart of my mission as a teacher and a composer and a musician. And that mission, which goes back to the very early days of my career, is a commitment to helping people realize their imagination by giving them the creative and the listening skills that they need, or that you need, to make music that is authentically and uniquely yours. Here's what the question was. Basically, how does holistic ear training, all this solfege stuff and singing songs by ear and learning to play by ear, how does that help me make better music? Or how does that help me make music better? So if you want to improve your ability to understand what you hear and create your own music, stick around because I'm going to lay it all out right now in this video. And this video is the first of a series that goes deep into each of the points that I'm going to present to you today. The short answer is simply this. The more fluently you understand what you hear, more clearly you can audiate, the more you think and feel in music, not in notation or in muscle memory, but think in music, the more masterfully you can create music at any stage of the creative process. Generating, selecting, shaping, practicing, and producing. So in today's video, you're going to get a real specific idea of how holistic ear training works alongside specific creative music-making approaches to help you discover and realize your own unique original music. I'm Hans at tuneindigo.com. Let's get started. On one side of my mission is this tools, the ear tools. Now, I've developed holistic ear training stemming from my experience using Kodai as a teacher, and also my experience with jazz learning and third stream, or what is now called contemporary improvisation. Actually, it's now called contemporary musical arts out of the New England Conservatory in Boston. But those two ways of learning ear are very simpatico because they both use real music as the source for everything you do. Then the other side, the creative process side of this, comes from decades working as a composer in all sorts of media, especially working as a live underscorer in improv comedy. And I had a little stint as a creativity consultant with a creative management company. The holistic ear training has 3 phases. And again, these phases come from Kodai. First is soak and savor, which is listening with a focus to music you love and seeking patterns you recognize. It's an intuitive stage where your unconscious is loaded with musical stuff. The next phase of holistic ear training is discover and connect, where you identify patterns either on your own or with a teacher or in some other kind of resource, and then you name them. So this is where solfege comes in, where you hear a pattern and you might name it. We've got plenty of videos where that's the thing that we do. And then the big body, or the longest phase, both in Kodai and in holistic ear training, is practice and apply, where you do a whole battery of things, singing melodies in solfege without accompaniment or with accompaniment, like backing tracks, or playing your own accompaniment. Playing melodies you have learned to sing in solfege on your instrument, like including doing it mentally, because there's a big mental practice part that helps. Furthering what you're doing by listening drills, and of course, learning more music by ear and creating original music. All those are practices within holistic ear training. In response to the specific question I got, which had a little bit more to do with patterns, remember that any kind of time you're learning a language, you first start by learning specific words, which have meaning and intent behind them. And gradually, the process of focusing on these specific patterns dissolves into fluency across all musical material in your vocabulary. So what that means is you're gonna learn some words, the sounds of the 1 chord, the sounds of the 3 chord, different melodic patterns and so on, more advanced material, and you're going to learn them specifically, but then they're going to be internalized. Gradually, the process of focusing on these specific patterns dissolves into fluency across all music material in your vocabulary. And of course, your vocabulary gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The second big point is, and this is the big one, your ability to audiate and pre-hear and thereby begin with the end in mind, so like you can hear a whole piece in your mind as you get better, get stronger and make everything else you do musically stronger, more flexible, more confident, and more fluid. Okay, so now we're going to go through the creative process. I'm going to give it to you, the big points, and then we're going to go back and I'm going to show you how your ability within each one of these is elevated by your new listening skills. First, in the creative process, and this is true for across all disciplines, writing, sculpture, drawing, and music composition or songwriting. First is generating. That's where you're intuitively and actively creating stuff, and you are not worried about whether it's good or bad. You have banished the critic, and you are generating. You are making stuff. And you want to make a lot of stuff so that you have stuff for the next part of the process, which is selecting. And selecting is where you go through your stuff and you identify things that really resonate with you. And you set those aside, you organize them, and then you move them into the next stage, which for now we'll call shaping. And that's where you apply a myriad of development, editing, gardening tools, yes, gardening, to extend the material or refine the material that you've come up with. Melodies, chord progressions, form ideas. And that's where we can introduce some rational thinking, right? The critic can come in and be like, I think I want that to be a different way. So that phase takes you towards like some rough or even more developed drafts of specific songs, compositions, and so on. Then we put polish on it. We practice the material if we're a composer-performer, or if you are a conductor, you need to be able to get through your score, hearing what's happening. And finally is producing, whether it's a final recording that you mix and master, or a final score that you'll then rehearse with people, or even just a chord chart that you're going to bring to your band. That's the creative process in a nutshell. And just about any book on creativity will have something like that laid out. Now we're going to go through each one of those 5 steps, and I'm going to show you how having a better ear, understanding what you hear in real time, is going to help you succeed masterfully in each one of those for better results. Generating. There's a bunch of different things that we do deliberately, knowing that we're generating, keeping the editor out of the room, that allows us to come up with a good, rich set of stuff that we can select later on. At the top is vocal improvising, just singing a song, just singing whatever comes out of your mind as you walk, as you lie down, as you sit there, wherever you are, you always have your voice. And singing, improvising singing is a great high-level way to generate. And of course, you need to record it. Otherwise, it doesn't exist anymore once it's gone. The benefit that you get from doing ear work is that you are now comfortable with your singing voice. Over time, even non-singers, and everybody's a singer, by the way, feel more and more comfortable with their voice improvising with an instrument, where you focus on pre-hearing. That's where you're hearing something in advance and then play it. You're not reflexively playing patterns or scales that you just have mechanically learned. You are playing music that you're hearing in advance. And your work with ear practice pays off with more fluid audiation and pre-hearing. Another technique that I teach for generating music is improvising on paper. It's writing music, but it's with this mentality of improvising, where you write what you hear, one note at a time, but fast. And there's a few different ways to do it. And I focus on writing pitch lines. That's a melody line without any rhythm. That you've elevated your skill for that. You can now audiate melodies within your ear vocabulary that you've developed. Many of us work within DAWs, digital audio workstations. So you can do DAW doodling. And because you know what you are imagining in your mind, you can work proactively in your DAW. You don't have to just kind of select things or be at its service. It is at your service because you have an idea in your mind of what you're trying to do. And so if you're using the pencil tool, if you're using a MIDI keyboard, if you're recording on your guitar, if you're recording your voice into your DAW, you have an idea of where you want things to go because you can hear it clearly in your mind. You can also do what I call pattern sketching, which is where you take an idea that you may have thought with thinking, you can write it down or you can write it out and you can sing through it and then manipulate that and continue to develop. And your conscious awareness of specific musical patterns, whatever they may be, helps you riff on those very ideas, now with a clear auditory image You can also apply any of these to recomposing. Now, recomposing, what I'm going to tell you about recomposing is not going to get you sued, and there's really no legal gray area there. It's black and white. You can take any melody, take out the rhythm, make it into a series of just pitches, and then add a new rhythm, and now you have something new. You can also take an existing chord progression, which you cannot copyright, and write a new melody on top of the chord progression. You can also change the harmonic rhythm of the chord progression. So if you've internalized a chord progression, you can change the rhythm, the harmonic rhythm of it, the way it flows, and then write a new melody on top of it. What I often refer to, and what's referred to often in composing, is this comes from that. So you take one thing, you extend it to something else. So with your improved ear, you own music on a deep level. It's not abstract. It's not mathematical. You think in music. Okay, so that is generating. Then we apply some critic and we go through our stuff and we select. And your improved ear helps you review your rough material, hearing clearly what you've created, whether it's written or in audio form, which allows you to duplicate, transcribe in whatever kind of notation system you're good at or have command of, or even a beginning command of it. And organize. You want to find where your stuff is. So like in my case, I work on my phone, audio memos. I work on paper, scraps of manuscript paper all over the studio. I work in my DAW. So there's files that I have to keep track of. So taking time to organize that stuff is important. And as you do that, when you listen to various things or when you look at things, your improved ear will help you do that. On to shaping. This is where you develop all that stuff. You've created a whole lot of stuff, you've organized it, you've selected it, and now you've taken some things that you really like, and now you're going to get into it and shape those things. And this is where we're a little irrational, a little bit rational, a lot intuitive. And I've got a whole raft of these different techniques for developing musical material that I've worked with over the last many, many years. I'm not going to get deep into them. I'll save getting deep into them for this topic video, but just as a quick list, there's great power in removing unneeded notes. You'd be amazed at how clear a melody can come when you just take out a few unnecessary notes. Motivic development, taking a little idea and moving it around to create drama. Variation, taking the same thing, changing it, having more of that thing, not being boring. Leveraging form, using form, your understanding of form to create same, different, and drama, narrative arc, which is another thing that you can imagine with your clear listening and audiating skills. Transposition, that's a really important thing. If you're writing for different instruments, if you're writing for voice, you want to be able to know how to transpose. Now, you can do transposition just by calculating, but you could also transpose by leading with your ear, giving yourself a starting note in the new key and hearing your way through it. Put that together with your music theory skills, power. And because you have a sharp ear and vivid musical imagination, you need to play your stuff back a lot less than you did before. This and the confidence it brings saves enormous amounts of time and energy. I don't know how many times I've watched a student in a lesson where we're working on a DAW replay the same little bit because they haven't developed their audiation skills. You want to minimize the amount of time you either have to play it on your instrument or play back the audio, run back the playhead. You want to minimize that because you want to be driving, just like I said during the generating sense. And all that takes time. Think about all the time you spend listening back to the thing instead of just trusting your initial instinct and moving on. One thing about listening back is that the more you listen to something back, the better it sounds. So I see a lot of students that are just like, they put something into their DAW and they're like, or their notation software, and they're like, that sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good isn't enough. You want to own the music and choose very proactively what notes you're putting together. You want it to come from inside. Polish. There's a bunch of stuff getting towards rehearsal, performance, where you're polishing. Now, as you practice your own music, first of all, it came from an ear process. It's totally embodied. So you're already ahead of where you would be if you had not been using your ear. in your composition process because you're hearing it as music. Within that, you practice on your instrument, but a very powerful thing is mental practice, where you practice away from the instrument and run through it. Maybe you move your fingers a little bit, but big part is you're imagining what it is. And with solfege, or even just clearly imagining what you're hearing and what you've practiced, it really, really helps. And you're able to leverage the science-backed success of this mental practice, clearly imagining the music. Also, if you want to memorize, because most performances that are really stunning are with memorized music. And your memorization skills, you're going to notice those go up as well because you understand your music as music in sound, and you can memorize the way your music sounds and simultaneously know what it is in the notes. Music is not abstract or mysterious to you. You are not a prisoner of muscle memory. Muscle memory is an important part of memory, but when you only know a piece of music by how it feels in your fingers, you don't really own it. Now, that's okay if you're playing someone else's music, but if you're playing your own music, you want to keep it flexible. You want to keep it living in sound so that as you progress, you might be able to edit it, modify it, and so on, keep it alive. All right, now, as you prepare for rehearsing with other people, your ear skills are going to do wonders for your ability to detect someone else's errors. If you hear a note and you know that it's not the right note, instead of being like, that doesn't sound right, you can say, you should have been playing an E there. You were playing a D. That kind of authority in a rehearsal elevates your performances immeasurably. So apply error detection and rehearsal techniques using your ear skills. It's going to take you a long, long way. Even if it's just with a friend, it keeps the sort of interpersonal dynamic much smoother when you're working with a friend because you're not vague. Your comments to your pal, your bandmate, can be very specific. That should have been an E chord. You played a G chord. Not like you keep messing up. Don't say that. By giving your bandmates specific feedback on what they've played relative to what you intended goes a long way to make those collaborative relationships healthy and strong. Okay, so over the next probably year, I'm going to go into each one of those topics, each one of those stages, and unpack specific techniques you can use within holistic ear training and the creative musical process to strengthen your musical imagination. Let me know what you're interested in hearing first. I'm going to go through the order of the creative process, aligning each one, making a video for each little point there. But if there's one you want sooner, let me know. Drop it in the comments. I love talking to you folks on the comments. And if you want to check out Holistic Ear Training's The Foundations course, check out the link. There's a webinar that gives you an in-depth look at how it starts or how it works. Thanks a lot for listening.